Okay, with the end of, we skipped a good part of Basi Legani Tavshin Chol Gimel, but we're all the way closer to the end. What we're learning yesterday is there's a party which symbolizes lower than Sholosh Chibsat Tameis. So you have the level of party in business and by Yosef oil, and he says party in business is somebody who thinks it's my brains, it's my ability, my things, what makes the business. And he says contrary to that is Parnasa comes totally from Hashem. A person only has to make a keli. Eid Muvadi, yeah. I'll tell you something. Some people say it, most people think it. Some people are smart enough not to say it, but some people say it. Or at least they give the impression in action, in attitude, that that's what it is. And then he says there's a party in the concept of Yeshiva, of Limud HaTorah. In other words, when a person learns Torah, but he doesn't keep in mind Hashem's Torah. And therefore, like we said yesterday, he said, okay, Rambam says this, but I say this. You know, all that type of stuff. That has to be eradicated. Okay, so, we're going to start on page Chaf Aleph. In the book, there's 4 lines in the end of the page. Hainu, he's speaking about the party in Yeshiva. Hainu, shebetchila monachatz lebemuna pshuta. Initially, it's a given by him with the simple amunah. Sheyesh neisin atayra v'atayra tayra savaya. That Hashem gave the Torah is taka Hashem's Torah. But then he starts maschel inside of a seichel. Then he starts mixing in his own seichel. Maybe this, maybe that. And what happens afterwards is, once you mix in your seichel telukus, it only becomes your seichel. It's not a lukus anymore. And then you're headed for trouble. Then, because of his seichel, mishtamish b'teira gufa. He'll use Torah itself to teach a teaching which is which is contrary to Torah. Instead, the worst thing, in other words, what's the pari klipa of Torah? Is mixing your own seichel in. Once you mix your own seichel in, yeah, it's Torah Hashem, but I also have an understanding, and what I understand makes sense, what I don't understand doesn't make sense, and then he utilizes his seichel to teach things which are Hepach HaTorah. Okay, so top of the page is where we're up to now. The Inyan Bezad, the Inyan is Kamisha Mavor Baruch B'Kuntazit Chaim L'Chakad Mor Rebbe Rashab. Says like this: Torah Shebal Peh Nimshal L'Te'ena. Torah Shebal Peh, oral Torah, is likened to a fig, and Te'ena is an Eitz Hadas, is the fruit of the Eitz Hadas. Like it says, the opinion of Rashbi and Medrash Rabbim and Nachman in the Gemara. There's a whole argument we learned already. What was the Chet Eitz Hadas? What was the fruit of the Eitz Hadas? So one person says it was a chita, a wheat. One other person says it was an esrog. Another person says it was ta'eno. That's what Rabbi holds, a fig. Another opinion says, according to Zayad, it was actually a geffen. It was actually a vine. Okay, but he says Torah Shebal Peh. The Rebbe Rashab brings down over there with sources that the Torah Shebal oral Torah is the level of a fig. It's a wonder. Basically, you're saying Torah Shebal Peh is a fig, and the fig was Eitz Hadas. So you're basically saying Torah Shebal Peh is Eitz Hadas Teverah. How can you have Eitz Hadas Teverah in Torah Shebal Peh? The Torah Shebal, really it says in Raya Memnu, which is part of Zayad. Torah Shebal Peh is Ilana de Teverah, is the tree of good and bad. So how is it possible to say that Torah Shebal Peh is Eitz Hadas Teverah? He says, Eina Kavanah la Torah Atzma. It doesn't mean Torah itself. Shichas Shalom B'chinas Ilana de Teverah. Definitely, you can say that it's the tree of Teverah. To say Torah itself is Teverah can't be. It's only good. What does it mean? So what does it mean when Torah Shebal Peh is the level of Eitz Hadas Teverah? He said, Misabi Tzadislav Shalab B'dvarim Gashmi. Because Torah Shabbal Peh deals primarily with physical objects, which animals are kosher, agriculture, damage, everything physical. Hainu Mishim Mislabesh is B'levushim the Teva Ramamish. Torah Shabbal Peh deals with physical objects that are klipas nega, which is Teva Ram, Mitzad Zeh. And because of that, when a person learns Torah Shabbal Peh, he's able to forget. In other words, like this, you're more prone to forget Hashem, mixing your seichel in with Torah Shabbal Peh than with Torah Shabbat. Torah Shabbat, there's no seichel. It's Torah Shabbat. Like we learned, you can read Tillim, you don't even know what one word means. Nevertheless, you still get a mitzvah of learning Torah, because Torah Shabbat, you don't have to understand. Torah Shabbal Peh, if you don't understand it, you're not mekayim the mitzvah of learning Torah. So because Seichel comes into it, and he's explaining, because Torah Shabbal Peh lowers itself into Dvarim Gashmi, into physical things, when a person mixes his Seichel into it to understand it, sometimes he can forget that it's a lukus, because it's his seichel dealing with physical objects of klipas nega, or for that matter, Torah Shabbal deals with shosh kibitz atmeis. This guy lies, that's trade for whatever. Shosh kibitz atmeis also. Hainu mitzad zeh Torah nislab shebinyanim gashmi, because Torah addresses itself into physical things, and therefore. Says in Yiddish, in order to choose, in other words, to select what's yes and what's no, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and all that. You have to use your seichel. In other words, in order to make even a halachic decision, you have to use your seichel, because you have to know how Torah applies. In other words, if somebody has to make, let's say, a halachic decision, so you have to know the facts of the physical object, and then you need to know which part of Torah applies to this. Is it yes or is it no? So you have to, for that, you must use your seichel. If you don't use your seichel, you're not going to be able to figure out. We learned this many times, say in technology, or medical issues today. The Torah doesn't talk about all these smartphones and dumb phones and this and that. The Torah doesn't talk about it. So you have to understand the way it works, and then understand the rules of Torah, and that's why you have arguments, even in contemporary halacha, if something is allowed or not. What's the question? Which rule in Torah applies to this particular thing? Which rule in Torah? So then you need to use your seichel. Once you mix your seichel into it, and you get carried away with your seichel, then you can forget what is Hashem's Torah, and you can do what you want instead of what Hashem wants. What? If you don't get it? No seichel? No seichel is good. Then you can't mix your seichel into it. But the problem is, it's usually the people that don't have seichel think they have it. The people that have seichel, no, they don't. People that don't have seichel think they have seichel. That's the problem. So he says, by the way, it's not a joke. You have to use your physical seichel. And you have to put your seichel into gashmistic things. Therefore, then what can happen is the intellect overcomes the godliness of it. It's yizgaber, it strengthens itself. V'yaylim v'yastir, and it conceals and covers alo kusha b'zeh, and the godliness to the extent sheyishkach alo kusha b'zeh, he forgets godliness completely. It's similar what the Rambam explains at the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah. The Rambam says a very simple. He alludes to a very simple question. How in the world did Avodah Zarah begin? In the world. They saw godliness. Hashem spoke to Adam. Where did it had to begin from somewhere? So the Rambam says, in the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah, what happened is, people believed in Hashem. But they said, listen, the sun gives light, warmth, makes things grow. We should also thank it. Of course Hashem is. We should thank the sun. As time went on, the sun is tangible. Hashem isn't. So as time went on, they started worshipping it more and more and more until they, like you say, until they forgot about Hashem completely. The same thing the Gemara says in Shabbos. There was one of the Yudchas Davar, one of the 18 Zaydas Bishami made, was that if you go into Mayim She'uvim, you become Tamei. Why? What's wrong with plain water? Because people used to go to the mikveh, and it was very dirty water. It was not like today filtered, clean. It was, they called it a grease pit, they used to call it. It was dirty. So what did people do after going to the mikveh? They took a shower to clean themselves off. So after a while, people started saying, it's not the mikveh that cleans you, that purifies, it's the shower. So they stopped using mikveh. The Chum said, you know what, you go into water, you get tummy. The same thing, one thing leads to the next. It's interesting, the Rebbe was always very, very particular about that. It's not what you do now, but what it leads to. A person uses this seichel, in Torah Shabbat Peh, you have to use your seichel. You have to choose, understand what's this and what's that. What happens though is when you eventually use your seichel, you forget about the nice in that Torah. It's only your seichel.
There's a boundary to it.
Yeah, but the people don't use that. And then it becomes by the person the opposite of good. Like he says, what the Gemara says, Zacha, if you marry it, it becomes Samachayim. Loi Zacha, you don't marry it. Hainu, Shachos, and Etzli, Inyan, Azchuz, Vabihidus. Here the Rebbe explains it very interesting. Simply, Zacha means you marry it, it's the medicine of life. You don't marry it, the Rebbe says Zacha comes from the word Zaka, clean, pure. Zakus ubehirus. Zakus means pure. Loi Zacha, if Torah is not pure by you, meaning you mix your seichel into it, then becomes samamavis. It's not a question of merit and not merit. This is a much deeper definition. It's your avodah. If your Torah is Zacha, it's pure, that means you realize it's a Neisen HaTorah. There's no seichel of yours mixed in. Then it becomes Samachayim. Loi Zacha, your Torah is not clear. It's not pure because you mix your stupid seichel into it. So then it becomes Samamavis. Nasale, one second. The Samachayim, B'chol Zewad Derech Hanal B'nigel Pari. Same thing what happened with Pari. Pari, he said before, was Kfui Tova. Pari didn't appreciate what Hashem did. The whole brach of the Nile coming up, when Pari came to the Nile to irrigate the land of Canaan, the Mitzrayim was from the brach of Yaakov Avinu, who came from Kedusha, and he died. It's mine, I made it. What? Hello?
So you see many people.
No, I'm not.
Different reasons, but then at the end,
he's not talking about learning Torah Sholei Lishma. He's turning learn Lishma means for Parnasa to become respected, to become. Here he's talking about mixing your own seichel into Torah in a way that you forget godliness of Torah. That's not Sholei Lishma. Learn Lishma is a different thing. You could be learning Torah properly. It's Hashem's Torah. But you're doing it for ego. You're doing it to show somebody off. Whatever.
I'm saying it's two separate.
It's two separate things. Here we're talking about a person learns Torah with his seichel to the extent the seichel disguises, conceals, and throws out the kedusha of Neisen HaTorah. That is Hashem's.
In some ways, that's worse than Sholei Lishma.
It's worse. Of course, it's worse. Shlei Lishma, Ba Lishma. Shlei Lishma eventually comes Lishma. And now the Rebbe says in Hilchos Talmud Torah and in Tanya, he said, it doesn't have to be this time around. Next time the neshama comes around, you learn it once lishma, so you elevate all the things. This is much worse. This is a way that you're megal upon him b'Torah shleika halacha. You reveal aspects in Torah against halacha. That's the worst. Messiah ba'maimer.
Orthodox guy turns reformer.
Huh?
The guy who's an Orthodox guy, went to yeshiva, all of a sudden he turns to reformer.
We don't categorize Jews.
No, I don't mean categorizing, but because he went away from the whole.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean a lot of times it's your seichel that did it.
That's what I'm saying. He went away specifically. He knew what he was doing. He had the background.
The attitude is, I understand better than Torah. That is the poison that kills Torah. Messiah Basif, what? Messiah Basif, and he finishes when he's speaking about mata haring tachlis, right? That the or kamri b'tzimtzum alamis v'hasteirim b'yosef. That the or Ein Sof comes into mata and a lot of concealments to the extent it becomes teva, nature. Now what's nature? Melosh and tuba b'yamsuf. We have in this parsha tuba b'yamsuf, sunken in the sea. What does it mean, teva? Sunken. Sha'ard humut b'behester v'halim b'yosef. That the ord of Torah becomes so buried, not only Torah, of Elokus, Elokim, plural, Elokim is Lashon Rabbim, pluralism. It's the only name of Hashem that's plural. It's the only name of Hashem which is plural. Because Elokim, which is tzimtzum and concealment and hateva, that's where pluralism can exist. Diversity. Not Einoid Movadi. Einoid Movadi, like you said. Shabbat Medi b'yishtaush is the odd. Shemishtaus shemimadrega lemadre. It's a good thing, by the way. Huh? Einoid Movadi. Shemishtaus shemimadrega lemadrega. You know, it's interesting. We're almost done with the mimer, but it sounds funny. But Einoid Movadi doesn't mean in a coarse level. If I come before you, it's Einoid Movadi. Think about it. Einoid Movadi means I come before you. Because you and me are equal, why do I come before you? The Gemara has an expression, you know, the three Avedas you have to give up your life for. Idolatry, adultery, and murder. Yeah? Idolatry, the Gemara learns out from a pasuk. How do you know murder? That you have to give up your life? The Gemara says it's not a pasuk, it's logic. Who says your blood is better than his? You're a person, I'm a person. Yeah? So if I'm going to, God forbid, kill you, if I'm told to, somebody holds a gun to my head and says, kill him, or else I'll kill you. So my blood and his blood are the same blood. Right? Now, why should I do an action of murder? Let this guy do an action of murder. Why am I going to do an action of murder? So the Gemara learns it out from a logic. Well, who says your blood is better than his? Meaning, me and you are the same. If I come before you, that's Einoid Movadi. To a certain extent, a refined way, but in
the desert with water.
That's a different story. Then Chayacha Kaitman. But you're not doing an action against the person. He says, even the lowest levels. Mata haring tachlis. So like he explained before in both my modim, what is mata haring tachlis? The or itself, which is maila haring and ketz. The infinite level of Allah, and the Rebbe says in the Maimon many times, not only the his pashtus, not only is it in mata, but it's revealed mata. It's begili mata. Nim shocha or the Ein Sof mitzad zanas in the bal yidach mimanu nidach. And because of that or, no Jew will be finally pushed away. Ubesif and shelacher zamam shechlavar inyan Ein Sof l'mayla malad and ketz. And these seifim, the Friedrich Rebbe explains the concept mata haring tachlis. Later on in the Maimer, after Yud Gimel, Yudalit Tezvav, whatever, he explains the level of Ein Sof L'mayla Mayla and Kat Ketz Hashem Echin Zonim Shecha'etz Hashem Evzazvin. Remember, we learned the whole time. When it comes to the battle, the king throws out the treasures. So what is that in Ruchnius? The Eibishter reveals the hidden treasures of Elokus that are normally hidden. So what does it mean in this language? That when it comes to fight a battle, Hashem is Megala the Od Ein Sof L'mayla Mayla Aden Ketz. That level, V'neis Neisim L'tzivitz Hashem, you give him to the soldiers, not only the generals, Elokol Anshei Achayil. All this, the foot soldiers get it. Who wins the war? Actually, the soldiers. To make Kadesh, right? And Atishitim Aimdim Daika. Aimdim, it's later already, but the Rebbe explains in Basi Legani, in the earlier chapters even, it says about the crush of Atishitim Aimdim. Okay, the boards were upright. Now what is Aimdim? Omud. So, now what does the column do? This column connects top and bottom. So what did the Kroshim do? Aimdim? They connected Elokus with world. Okay, leave it here.
Is a mata la mata, is that Shlosh